A very good morning to you. It is the 12th of December 2019 and you're watching UBC Inspiring Uganda. My name is Rowena Kajumba for Business Today here, and we do have a lot in store for you. We'll be starting off with our corporate news as we're looking at the quality, production and reliability which has been singled out as a key driver for industrialization in Uganda and Africa at large, especially as Africa warms up for the African Continental Free Trade Area market. Now, this was emphasized by State Minister for Trade, Michael Werike, while officiating this year's commemoration of Africa Industrialization Day.
It is believed that this year alone, President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, on behalf of government, has commissioned over 60 factories within different parts of the country. This has been welcomed and many believe it will help in closing up the unemployment gap, especially to the youth.
I'm not interested in taxes of factory owners, direct taxes. I'm not interested. Direct taxes. That's why we give you tax holiday of 10 years.
However, there are many reasons to worry, ranging from sustainability, quality, and reliability. As Uganda joins the rest of Africa in commemorating Africa Industrialization Day, experts warn that if quality is surpassed by quantity, then Uganda's industrial sector is likely to fall back.
We cannot have production unless people have the necessary technology or equipment and the skills to handle that technology and turn the technology and the skills into finished products.
Early this year, African leaders, through African Union, launched a Continental Free Trade Zone expected to kick off early next year. With a market of over 1.3 billion people, Uganda's industrial sector has been implored to take up this opportunity.
This business of churning out theoretical professionals doesn't help. Indeed, as you saw from the professor, you get someone who is an engineer, yes, but is a paper-qualified engineer.
Werike made the remarks while officiating at this year's commemoration of Africa Industrialization Day held in Kampala, where he represented the Minister for Trade, Industries and Cooperatives, Amelia Chambade.
Africa is the continent with the largest arable land, about 874 million hectares. However, Africa is the continent with the lowest level of development. 35 of the world's poorest countries are in Africa.
The event was held under the theme, Positioning African Industry to Supply the Continental Free Trade.
So, keynote to understand that industrialization for Africa is important because we look towards solving unemployment. The youth are the most affected in this.
I'm Robert Onyango for UBC News, Kampala.
Okay, now moving on. The government of Uganda, through Uganda Development Company Limited, is in final stages to import 980 Ashok Leyland buses in a bid to decongest Kampala and the surrounding towns. Now, Ashok Leyland, the Indian company, is also expected to assemble their buses in Uganda as well as build capacity of local automotives such as Kira Motors.
Due to traffic jam in Kampala, Uganda's economy loses shillings 2.8 trillion every year, according to estimates from experts. Creating a mass bus transit transport was identified as part of the solution to decongest Greater Kampala. The impending importation of 980 buses called Tondeka Metro from India is seen as the lasting solution to solve the traffic challenge in the city.
It's a way of doing a number of things. One, to stop the congestion on the roads, stop wasting time of travel.
Supporting this, and the government's main concern is to ensure that the citizens of this country have quality air supply in the city and they can afford to move conveniently and affordably.
The buses, according to Tondeka Metro bus services, are expected to operate on major roads from Kampala to Mukono, Entebbe, Nsanji, Buloba, Chengera, Matuga, Wachiso, Gaba, Ntinda, Northern Bypass, Munyonyo, among others. For one to use the bus transport, he or she will have to pay a monthly subscription that covers their monthly travels around the city. This is a cashless means of transport that is targeted not only to reduce congestion, but also reduce on transport expenditure.
We are going to have route marshals. We are going to ensure that there is one thing that we want to guarantee: affordability, but also speed and also reliability in terms of availability. So we're going to make sure that the buses are available and accessible to all, including the disabled.
Most important to note is that buses are to be got on loans, which will be facilitated in 3 years period with the proceeds from transport fares. Several stakeholders have been brought on board, some of whom include those already in the transport sector, government entities and non-government entities.
They've engaged at the technical level, they've engaged at the municipality level, they've engaged at the district level, they've engaged the ministry, they're engaging also the parliamentarians. So by the time the project comes into being, it will have been kind of sold to everyone. I told you, the investors are many in this project, including the taxi operators and the taxi owners.
It should be noted that several similar interventions have been tried by government to end the congestion in the city. The 980 buses are expected to be on the road in 9 months' time. Susan Naonga reporting for UBC TV.
There's definitely been a debate there on whether the problem is actually the cars or how wide, rather, our roads are and if they can actually accommodate these buses. So pretty much I think the process should be quite engaging. If this has been decided, I think the process should be very engaging with the Ugandans so that no one is taken by surprise and so that the process is quite easy, or rather people ease into it if it's what has been decided on. But of course, that is something to follow on over time. Now, a very interesting one here. We've been looking at the EAC integration for quite a while now. And we're looking at the fact that the private sector should be the main engine at the heart of the regional East African community integration efforts here. And that this is not to discard political authority for the draw laws to given countries, including education, taxation, security, health, and infrastructure for the business community to generate wealth and increase their country's gross domestic product. Now, when Uganda exporters are able to cross any border in the East Africa community, or if you look at the EAC free of hindrances there, then we can chest thump and proclaim the promised land. Tariffs across borders were more visible and have have been largely eliminated. However, what countries have done is to introduce non-tariff barriers on sensitive products to make it complicated for a member country to export. Now, to be what they're looking at here is that the non-tariff barriers are trade barricades here, which restrict import and export of goods and services through technicalities. For example, quality standards, random border closures, and impromptu requirements in the game of the non-tariff barriers. Whenever a yellow card is signaled to a country, they will present delay tactics and change the shape and form of the barriers, but it will remain. Now, Trademark East Africa, whose mission is to promote rapid advances in the East African integration, trade, and global competitiveness for all East Africans, has undertaken considerable research on the non-tariff barriers here. Now, according to Trademark East Africa, the non-tariff barriers generally fall under 4 broad categories. What they're looking at here, namely, is measures having equivalent effect to custom duties and tariff quality and safety standard issues, direct import ban, and customs and trade facilitation measures. Now, according to the EAC Common Markets scorecard for 2016, the unresolved trade barriers here were distributed as follows. Now we're seeing that measures having equivalent effect on customs duties and tariffs being at 40%, and customs and trade facilitation measures were at 28%, quality and safety standards were at 24%, and direct import ban at 8%. Now Uganda is the most open and transparent player in the East Africa Community Common Market. Now, we fully embrace our neighbors' goods, but not all are reciprocating through full market liberalization here. And they're saying that, open quotes, I salute President Museveni, who has been extremely tolerant not to retaliate with trade blockades, even with the neighboring countries throwing tantrums and indirect provocation there, poking him openly in the eye and itching for a fight. Now, an eye for an eye can brew a trade war and blood on the floor. Now, what we're looking at here is that what we're looking at here on the trade barriers are companies that are pressurizing home governments to suffocate imports from competitive countries to protect profit margins. Now, recently there were reports of Uganda milk exports facing non-trade barriers in the Kenyan market through Kenya. Though Kenya has more mature and sophisticated dairy industry, Uganda is competitive on price, consumer decisions, and determined by the delicate balance between price and quality. And if the Ugandan exporter meets these criteria, so be it. Now, recently the East Africa Community celebrated 20 years, but what we're looking at here, top item, was on the non-tariff barriers, and the solution for these is a political will, and also what we're looking at is political will should cascade to government, technocrats and custom officers there who are at times in cohorts with the intelligence private sector, indigenous private sector, to make life difficult for the products from another country. Now, what they're looking at here is that a non-tariff barrier is like a traffic jam, where you are going and you don't know how to get there because there's a lot of strain, or you have to wait a little longer than usual. And in this particular case, what we're looking at, the situation here between the different East African countries, where some of them don't seem to be quite cooperative. Now, this is no silver bullet to solving all political, economic, and social problems in the East Africa Community, but trade liberalization stands high in unveiling opportunities, and when businesses are allowed to flourish, it creates jobs and increased tax base within the countries because of increased production, and reduces poverty, and also promotes healthy competition, meaning that the consumer is exposed to the best variety. But again, having mentioned this, they're saying, well, the thing is, Uganda seems to be pretty much the country that's taking in everything, and we've seen it, whether it's in terms of importing labor or even the different goods from within the region. It's quite easy, but one might wonder why it could be difficult for others. One would use the excuse of standards, but like we mentioned, we need to have some sort of agreement on some of these things, a harmony of sorts that seems to be missing in some of these issues. So it's very, very important here that probably as we discuss this as the region, because we're also looking at going to it as a continent, how about we deal with some of these things as a region first before we get into the continent affairs. Of course, that is something that many of you can look into and understand and see that there's a number of things here that we've probably been discussing for quite a while. Hopefully, soon enough, we'll be able to deal with some of these issues. But also, there is a very interesting one here as you're looking at how you fared financially this particular year. And, of course, that is by Sylvia Joko. You can take a look and see in how you've been, performing, your money habits, your income, and also evaluating some of your goals, how you are able to accomplish all those things this particular year as it comes to an end. Don't go away, you're still watching Business Today.
Airtel to Airtel at 60% discounted rates. Yes, you can now send money for as low as 100 shillings and a maximum of 1,000 shillings. And that's not all. You can now withdraw up to 7 million shillings from your nearest Airtel Money agent for as low as 12,500 shillings. Remember, depositing money is free. Buying airtime through Airtel Money is free. Airtel Money and PIN registration is free. Do not pay any transaction charges directly to the agent, and never share your PIN number with anyone. Enjoy the lowest rates on sending and withdrawing money on Airtel Money today. Airtel Money. Simple, instant, secure. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Hello, Uganda! We introduce to you the first and ever My Right to Play Christmas Kids Festival 2019. Let the kids feel the Christmas Eve on the 21st of December at the Legends Sports Ground in Lugogo. Entrance is 10,000 shillings only and parents free. Bring your child and have an opportunity to play, sing, dance and discover their talents. Mujje tuyingira amazaalibwa nga abato basanyusa bato bannaabwe. Muleete abaana bammwe banyumirwe, banywe, bazanye. Kino kigenda kubeera kijjobe. Proudly sponsored by Legends Sports Ground, UBC TV, Star TV, U24 TV, Star FM, Magic 100 FM, UBC Butebo, Marketing, UMC Victoria Hospital, and Ideas Workshop. Bw'oyagala omwana okuyimba kuba ku ssimu eno.
Kwepena is back. Come and have original Ugandan fun at Kwepena and play the African way at the biggest celebration of traditional African games. Make your way to Legends Lugogo on the 15th of December and play Kwepena as you relive old memories and have a good time with friends and family. We will also have games like Blada, Sonko, Mweso, Ludo, Dolo, plus top-notch DJs and performers to keep you entertained as you eat some barbecue and sip on a good drink. Tickets are on sale at Galaxy FM reception, Oscar Foods in Tinda, and the Sammy House Bomber Road at only 10K and 5K for kids. Contact 0752 208 608 or 0784 218 964 for any reservations. Kwepena is powered by Cheza, Legends, KQ Hub Africa, Up and About, Campus B, UBC, and Galaxy FM.
We're coming to you live from Butekanga in Kamuli District.
In the sub-county where I come from, where my leadership is being practiced, money is really a big problem that is hindering women to join leadership.
And in case you didn't know, Fasi Fasi is a show intended to make way for women in the leadership sphere. How can we create space where someone who does not have 20 million shillings but has the ideas can become a leader in our community? Did you know that the journey to becoming a politician is very costly, especially for women in rural areas like Kamuli, where the main source of income is subsistence farming? Going by numbers, money seems to be a critical factor in joining the political race. And ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's make way and make some noise.
marketing organization of the country. Our mandate is to promote and market Uganda as the preferred tourism destination in Africa. So in line with our mandate, we are carrying out different initiatives to promote Uganda as the preferred tourism destination. So in line with our mandate, like I said, we are carrying out various initiatives, especially in the source markets, to make sure that we increase the number of tourists coming into the country. Our target as we speak is to make sure that we will bring in 4 million visitors by 2020. And one of the things that we've done is working with Back to the Source Tours on this project that we've dubbed Back to the Source. Like Sandra already mentioned, the North American market is one of our core markets that we're targeting to bring in most of the numbers. In fact, it is our number one source market. Our core source markets include the North American market, German-speaking countries, and the UK. Those are the 3 markets that top the list. However, the North American market is the top. In addition, we are also looking to target emerging markets like Japan, China, and the Gulf states. In these markets, we conduct different activations, market activations, to create general awareness about our destination, Uganda. We also partake different initiatives to get tour operators in those source markets to sell Uganda. As you mentioned already, our CEO is currently in the US, Florida, with a delegation of about 10 tour operators attending the United States Tour Operators Association. It is the biggest event in the United States which attracts all tour operators in the North American trade. So the objective of us being there is to ensure that we link tour operators in the source market with Ugandan tour operators in order to do business and create trade linkages. So these initiatives, including the road shows that we do in the key source markets in North America, UK, German-speaking countries, and the emerging markets, like I've mentioned, Israel, Japan, and China, aimed at increasing the number of arrivals into the country. So right now, our newest marketing initiative on the shelf, as UTB, now targets the Afro-Americans in the North American market. It's being dubbed the Back to the Source initiative. The Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, top management flagged off the campaign by appointing an American actor of Ugandan descent. He's called Intare Buma Mbaho Mwine, and he was appointed the Uganda's Goodwill Culture Tourism Ambassador. Like Fanny mentioned, he will be coming into the country in about a week's time. So he was appointed the Goodwill Culture Ambassador for Tourism to further position the Pearl of Africa favorably in the core source market of North America. The Uganda Tourism Board, working with Intare Buma Mbaho, will host top American celebrities in Uganda from the 1st of December to the 6th of January 2020 in this project which we've dubbed, like I've mentioned, Back to the Source. UTB's efforts to benefit from diaspora networks ties have been untapped so far, yet these networks are of great potential for the advancement of cultural and heritage tourism in Africa. For example, Black Americans spend an upward of about $63 billion annually on travel. And like I've mentioned, we haven't done much as the tourism board to tap into this market. Nothing much has been, but there isn't much identity-based representation in the countries visited in Africa. And as such, there is no connection with these countries which the Black Americans visit. The African diaspora also has an impact on the societies they visit. You see many of them, partaking into humanitarian activities, giving back, as they interact with the communities in which they settle. And my interaction with Koshi this afternoon, she said she was taken aback by her experience with the Karamojong people. I think she'll be sharing a part of that in her speech. So, for the communities in which they settle, many of them contribute to the development of these communities and the countries which they visit. So we are hoping that when these celebrities come into Uganda, they are going to contribute to the economic development of the country, which will lead into job creation, especially for the youth of the country. On record, The African American citizens have complained of racism in some parts of the world. Therefore, the Back to the Source project is aimed at reframing the tourism narrative, creating a positive atmosphere of African Americans or citizens of the world with African descent to visit Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. Not to mention that Uganda has the most hospitable people in the world. So we want to tell them with this Back to the Source tour travel that Uganda is actually open to all of them. They are welcome to come back home. Through this initiative, UTB will promote Pan-African tourism and diaspora through culture and heritage tourism through the following ways. We intend to create tours and cultural programs dedicated to diaspora tourism. We will be offering educational and cultural exchange programs in partnership with leading universities and institutions of higher learning. We will be developing a strong online presence through digital marketing to reignite the need to visit ancestral Africa. Collaborating with African American movements to promote Back to Africa tourism excursions. Actually, not Back to Africa, I want to focus on Uganda, so it's going to be Back to the Source, Back to Uganda. In the same move, we will be partnering with Back to the Source Tours and Travel, Uganda Wildlife Authority, and Great Lake Safaris to host a set of African Americans to come and visit the Pearl of Africa.
It's very good to hear some of these things and the plans and things like that. So, coming back to the source, Mark. Just by the way, I'm in studios with my colleague here, Mark Arnold. Can you imagine? I'd forgotten to introduce. I know. My colleague here, Mark Arnold. Yes. And I know he's also been following up on a number of
tourism-related.
Tourism.
Yeah.
Just the other day he was at Murchison. I know for some reason I have to bring this up eventually, not now.
Okay.
But let's first of all get into the discussion of the
Back to the Source initiative.
Back to the Source initiative.
Yes.
I mean, you were there. You followed up on what was being said. Do you feel that yes, it carries a lot of water?
From my perspective and what I've been looking into, I think it's viable. I think it's something that, yes, will bring a collective of, African American, because the concept is we're basically trying to bring the Africans in the diaspora to visit the source, or should we say the Pearl of Africa.
Not just the Ugandans who are away.
Not just the Ugandans, but the Africans in the diaspora. So, and what UTB is doing with its partners is it's bringing together different bodies in the tourism fraternity. The tour operators is put together. Some of the key figures within the tourism, the ministry tourism, to bring these people from mostly North America, bringing them to tour the Uganda. But they're also using public figures as per se. So on that day when we were having that presser, we interacted with Koshi Mills. Koshi Mills is a public figure in the United States with a hit show. It's called Diaspora Dialogues. Yeah, so she links the diaspora most especially to Africa. So one way or another, she's the first beneficiary of the Back to the Source initiative by UTB, and she is supposed to tweet about the event. She's supposed to influence her following to look at Destination Uganda as one of those places. On the show, probably bring up the discussion. I love how she dressed up for the Yes, that was actually key, and it's so surprising that the way she was dressed. That outfit is called, I don't know what it's called. What is it called?
Well,
it's a chitenji, yes.
No, most people wear it. Originally, they would wear it underneath. Underneath for different cultures within the country. Like in the Western culture, like how I know that's the original. Yes. The one they wear, the skirt, the underneath, before you put on the dress or the what. So I love that it turns into a dress. Well, in this day and age, you need to find a way of reinventing things.
But
let's be honest, though. So we're having these people, these figures, maybe ambassadors, maybe people that have a following on the social media, because this is the age we're in. Yeah?
Age, yeah.
To encourage people, even probably not just the Africans, but the communities out there, to come and see what the Pearl of Africa is. But I'm sorry I'm doing this, because it seems we are when you write something on a board and you keep removing one word and the next letter, letters. What are they? Let's be honest, Mark. National parks can be found pretty much anywhere in the world, right? The kind of things that we have in the country, yes, I know we have uniqueness. But think about some of the things that really made us unique, that made us the Pearl, or what some people would call the Garden of Eden. We're destroying a lot of things, and we are boasting and thumping our chests, saying we have a lot to show, but we are destroying. So if this person has a following, for example, and says, guys, let's go to Uganda, come back home, see what you have as tourists, as what is there for us to see? Because I want UTB to sell what is unique about a country. Because let's be honest, someone will say, Rwanda and Uganda are sharing, I think, because we have the Bwindi Impenetrable. Yes. Bwindi. And then on the other end, Rwanda has. And Rwanda seems to be marketing it much more than we are. And yet we have the biggest chunk, if I could use those words. But it's also much, much more difficult here to access the impenetrable. And the other side, it's easy. So this is some of the things I'm talking about. It is a very competitive. Everyone in Africa is going down the tourism line today. What is it that we are showcasing as a country? I know we have a lot. Don't get me wrong. People might think, she doesn't have faith in the country. But what is it that UTB is actually saying, hey, we have this? Because that will take me to a discussion later on, because I think you know where I'm headed. I know. What is it that UTB is saying, well, you have to come, because we are actually the Pearl of Africa. There's so many parks across the land in Africa. I mean, let's be honest.
I'll start it from this point of view. Right about now, the tourism industry is I can say, at crossroads. Basing from his previous history or very recent history, the tourism industry has brought in over $1.4 billion of earnings. And if you contrast that from how much it gets from the national budget, it gets almost less than 1%. So you're looking at a bigger contributor getting a little amount of money. Perhaps that's what the planners, thought, like, okay, this is almost an automated industry whereby the things are already available. It can work without, and also bring in more than, we give it. That's but, there's the concept of the goose with the golden eggs. Yes? The concept of the goose with the golden eggs says that you cannot expect golden eggs from a goose that you do not feed.
Exactly.
Yes, that you do not feed. So why now get back to the point of the crossroads. So back to the source will, yes, bring diaspora into Uganda, with these celebrities and their following, yes, it will influence to some key point. But like your point is saying, what are they coming to see? Yes. Right about now, we have a wide range of, I'll still say, tourism elements that we can market. Yes, but it's going to have, from where I'm seeing we're almost going to be left with almost man-made tourism aspects that don't make us unique in one way or another. Yes, if we keep disrupting the natural ecosystem that we have instead of as opposed to preserving it. Yes. So back to the source. Yes, and I would love to think that Uganda Tourism Board in this initiative with their partners meant back to the source in a broader perspective, not just the source of the Nile, but the source of so much that we can offer. We have the birds, the 1,000 bird species.
I like what you're saying there, because the truth is, yes, we have about 50%.
Of the world's total bird species population.
Yes. And we're looking at the fact that, let me get to you on this one. I'll take you back. I'm sorry, because I'm
You
trying
take
to
me back to the source, eh?
to take you back. As when people would come back in the day to see the source, it was really to see the different things. But first of all, have we exploited the advantage we're having, being the source of the Nile, and having a chunk, rather pretty much the biggest chunk of Lake Victoria. So these are some of the things, honestly, to be honest, that as much as we're saying, hey, come on over, like you mentioned, we're not investing as much as this sector is bringing in.
Yes, that's true.
Yes,
that's true.
so it becomes a challenge. I'll bring you to the fact that we have probably the uniquest or most biggest population of the birds in the world, or something like that. Because yes, even there's some weird things I've seen on Natural Geographic, and I'm like, oh, that's here. I've never seen that, you know. But here's the thing. One example, not even one. We've destroyed many of our falls that, let's be honest, a lot more money was coming in through at the time. We've seen the Ripon.
I wouldn't want to say destroyed because...
Okay, well, we have disrupted.
Let's say we've disrupted. Yes.
But we're looking at the Ripon Falls. We're looking at Buchagali.
Owen Falls.
We're looking, exactly, Karuma. And now, if the largest that had actually stayed is where, by the way, most of the bird species that moved from these different habitats that were disrupted, moved. You understand? And then what shall we be left with? This is exactly what I'm saying. There's, I think, this particular type of giraffes that's also there. There's a particular type of crocodiles that are there. So these are some of the things. I do not know the people that decide these things.
Yes.
But then, what am I coming to see? Because let's be honest, you know, you've seen friends, you've seen people, every time they come, they've gone to these falls. If it's not the falls, it's the park. Am I lying?
Yes.
If it's not the park, it's the cultural tourism now that we are really, really pushing forward for. If it's not that, it is birding.
Yes.
Now,
We're
all of these things.
All these aspects are tied to some of the...
yes.
Rowena, I'll start that with a famous saying that goes, water will rest in a place of least resistance. If there's a pothole and water settles in there, I mean, that's the place with least resistance. A flat surface won't hold water, right? Yes, and that's what I would like to contrast the Ministry of Tourism with. The Ministry Fraternity is a place with the least resistance in this case scenario, because case in point, Murchison Falls, it's at crossroads with the Ministry of Energy. And as Uganda as a country, our vision is 2040. We must really be a middle class, income. And these initiatives, yes, as per se, as what government tells us is, these initiatives are meant for improvement. We have infrastructure development to make sure we attain. We have infrastructure development goals. We have various goals that we have. So Murchison Falls is being used as a, should I say, scapegoat, where we're sacrificing it for infrastructure development in the name of development for, say, a dam to generate power. But at least that will bring us back to the question: is it viable? Is it viable? So back to the source. Regardless, now let me bring you back to the issue. We can still sell tourism to the diaspora. We can, but it's going to get harder by the day if the tourism ministry continues to be a place of least resistance. If it continues not to put on a fight. If you look at the track record of the tourism ministry, they've not really had so much. Of course, they've had issues of, what's this forest? Bugoma Forest, is it? Yeah, they've tried to fight. They've not had so much conflict. It's really just starting to come up.
What we're saying, they are avoiding conflict. They don't want
by
to be put in
the fact that they have not had so much conflict from way. So I think the issue of conflict.
We've lost all those falls because no one is going to say anything about it.
Yes, I think they really need, the tourism fraternity needs to stand up for itself. Yes, and call on the Ugandans that really support it, because if we are going to bring people from the diaspora, from even Africa, or even the Ugandans ourselves just to touring, then we need to be able to preserve some of these things that the experts...
They do benefit the locals in these communities, you realize.
The culture, the cultural addition. Yes, I truly...
Because you go to these places and the people within the communities earn a living from there as well, because someone will tell you, oh, I can probably do this for you, I can mold this for you, I can sell you this. Within these communities that we're just thinking of just tourism sites, that the locals are benefiting from this because the cultures are different, quite diverse. I've been to a place where someone was telling me, in fact, they were doing the job of a tour guide. They weren't part of it, but because they live there, they tell you how their great-grandfather this and that, and how it used to be done, and how things have changed. You know, all of that. And these are people that probably the people in the communities or the tourists think, well, we need, that is how you see it. People in the tourists come back and say, we need to give back to a community, so and so, and you wonder how. But because they've been there and they've seen these people's way of life, they've understood them. The cultural tourism we're talking about, for me, I feel like maybe some of these things need to be dealt with people that actually know what's going on. We have people sitting in Parliament that have no idea, probably,
what's going to
happen after this. These are people that enter these places for free.
Yeah.
Yes, you've gone to the falls because you were minister or member of Parliament. You got your whole family. I'm not pointing out on anyone, but I'm just saying. But these things happen.
Though they have to pay a fee. I think they must pay a fee. Yes, but I'll say this: Uganda is a gem. Yes, the tourism fraternity is one of the things that actually make Uganda. Makes the effort of making Uganda a gem. You know, and if we have to market, yes, much as we need the investors, we need investment, we need infrastructural growth. But we always need to look at, I believe we need to look at what cost are we, you know, losing some of these things that we are, you know, setting up for. Yeah, at what cost are we going to sacrifice Murchison Falls for?
Because the people in the community may not even benefit from this. Let's be honest. Most of our electricity is exported, and the Ugandans don't even seem to.
And we have a surplus.
We have a surplus, exactly.
Yes, so we need to look at what cost are we trading the tourism industry for development. Yes,
but tourism brings us to development.
Tourism, yes, is one way that brings us to development. You know, we have business that also brings us to development,
exactly.
Industrialization, and now we're coming into the fourth industrial revolution, where you know we need to leverage IT as far as you know development and running some of our systems here. So yes, we need to put it at that perspective, whereby we have facts. That's one. We have facts. We have figures. We have numbers, where we can show. And I think it's also our role as journalists to actually dig into the facts and actually be able to show some of these stakeholders that make these decisions. Yes, that these decisions, you never know. Maybe sacrificing Murchison Falls could be a viable idea. We do not know that, and that is why I believe that before we get emotional or we get, you know, concerned, us as journalists, we need to be able to put it ourselves at the perspective of to get to know the facts.
But let me ask you, this sort of thing has been brought up before. Let us see, you know, do some sort of assessment to see if actually there will be any affected areas or things like that. It has happened before. I would love to think that the people that are talking about these issues are not just waking up, because it's happened before, not once, not twice, and the results have been seen. Exactly. But back to the source tourism initiative here. That is why my concern is: what are we bringing these people back to? Okay, how has the tourism board or the ministry, all the players, the sector players, set themselves for something like this? We're looking at things like standards. We're looking at things like the hotels and food, and all of these things need to be able to take on this kind of capacity that we're looking at. If you look at North America, for example, that's a whole lot of numbers.
That's a big number.
And that's why I think we're focusing on North America first. So how prepared, how are we set, what are we offering here is where, for me, I feel like maybe it's a much more particular, specific one. Because we also need to know as Ugandans.
Yes, we need.
Because as we also participate and we're looking at the local tourism, we also need to know that, hey, maybe that's why, because people are not even aware. People don't know.
People do not know.
You get what I'm saying?
Yes, there was a controversial statement that, you know, that was passed, where the Minister of Energy and Mineral Development was quoted to have said that the distance between Murchison and Uhuru Falls is 25 kilometers. Yes. It was my first time to Murchison Falls that day, and clearly it's not 25 kilometers. But maybe it was a slip of the tongue and she meant 25 meters. Yes. But that goes to me, it helps me realize that sometimes when we are deliberating on some things, we do not actually know what we are deliberating on. Yes, we do not know. So it takes knowledge to make good decisions. It takes knowledge of something. You can make a decision, a credible decision on something that you do not know. Yeah. So I think one, we need to know, and then understand what we know, and then perhaps use that as a basis to make decisions.
Okay. So Mark, finally, because this is things that you've been following up on and doing quite for a while. What is it that maybe we as because as journalists it's also a duty, one may think we're not taking sides, it's just something that we feel we need to discuss and take through.
Yes.
But some of the things we need to look into, because as much as we're looking at attracting more people into the country, what needs to be done to actually accommodate and give because you see, in advertising, you'll say, I will give you, this is what I'm going to give you, come for it. So I'll come for it, and I do not have it. That's why there is the customer complaint numbers where to complain from. So we are saying we have a lot to offer. Yes? And yes, we're convincing people to come. But what are those things, strategies, or things we can look into and say, maybe if we worked in this area, if we figured on this and that, then we shall be able to compete favorably and offer the right and good tourism services out there. A number of things really that probably some people may not.
I'll mention a few. One, I would say conservation should be key. Conservation of natural resources should be key. From my perspective, I would think, saving our natural resources at the cost of development shouldn't be the way to go. We should conserve. And then two, I would say holistic marketing. The tourism fraternity needs to give a holistic marketing approach to the tourism sector so that they can, be able to market themselves. Yes, there are initiatives. We see the Association of Uganda Tour Operators. We see Uganda Hotel Owners Association. We see the Uganda Tourism Board. We see Uganda Airlines. We see the, it's a broad perspective. It's a broad, So if they can have that holistic come together and then market strategically, say now that they've looked at North America, we say this whole tourism fraternity now we're prioritizing North America from 2020 to 2024. And make sure that everybody, at least maybe 40% of North Americans have visited Uganda.
Indeed.
That's one. So those two are the ones that I can mention offhand right now. And
and maybe also I think, like it was earlier mentioned, that maybe even the private sector should then come in, because where
if you actually think about it, the tourism sector is majorly the private sector. So when I talk about holistic marketing, I'm majorly actually looking at the private sector. The government bodies can only do the what do they call it? The overseeing role and implementation and standards.
I've seen businesses affected because of some.
They are affected, and they will continue to be affected if they do not, fight.
You see, where people leave Uganda and say, "I think we'll do business in Tanzania."
Okay.
All right, Mark, I know some of these things we cannot exhaust, but I'm sure you'll be joining me again very soon within the week. And of course, my colleague here, Mark Arnold Wadulo, and he's been following this up. I'm sure your experience at Murchison was amazing.
It was amazing. Very amazing.
And I think
very nostalgic. I mean, I took a picture sitting down at one of the rails, and if you look at my face, it almost looked like the Mona Lisa. You can't tell whether I'm laughing, whether I'm sad, or so someone asked me. Someone asked me, Mark, keep sitting. but don't allow them to take matches on Falls. So I told them I'm only sitting because I'm at Crossroads.
Exactly, you're at Crossroads as well.
Yeah, I'm at Crossroads as well.
Now, of course, these are things we cannot exhaust, but you back at home, maybe, you know, I wish we could find ways of involving the communities, you know, the people that are actually affected by these things.
True.
Yes, we're also affected in a broader picture, but the communities, these are people we don't know how they feel about these situations. Next time we need to make sure we involve the communities. But, well, bringing us back to the source, all the people out there back to the source here, that is an initiative, and of course hopefully we have a lot to market for as a country, a lot to showcase for as a country, and we are still proud, and we are still the Pearl of Africa. And of course, I do hope this does work for UTB and the different players there.
Yeah.
But I must say, Mark, thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you for your time. And this discussion may not end if we keep going at it.
True.
My name is Rowena Kajumba. My colleague here, Mark Arnold Wadulo. And of course, have yourselves a lovely day till tomorrow.